Welcome to Pashua's Moment with Pastor Charles Kiyaga.
Yes, praise the Lord, brethren. We thank God again for the opportunity to communicate. And as always, I'm your servant, Pastor Charles, and I'm standing here on your great site called Zion Pashua's Prayer Mountain, a site dedicated for people to find time to come and wait upon God. What the ministry of the Pashuas is about is to give or to encourage people to stay focused on God and pursue and seek after God. And eventually God will lead their way and God will guide them to become what He ordained them to become. So yesterday, we are talking about some of the critical junctions in our lives. And one of them is the marriage junction. It's a very, very critical junction. And usually the devil sets his traps around it. Yesterday I was sharing a testimony about my life, that during that time when it came due for me to get married, too many people pushed their way and were pushing that they have God has spoken to them. Many girls were praying in different churches. Pastors were calling me about girls that are claiming and they are praying, because I was a key youth leader in the city by that time, and I got very exposed to many churches, and so many girls were watching and I think had wishes. But then I was telling you how eventually God guided me on how to find a wife. So when I saw a very great push around me at that time, I decided to pray about it and spent a night in prayer. And God told me, I will give you a sign the following day. And I told you about a phone call I received of somebody that at that moment I didn't understand, but that person called me just to say thank you for the youth conference, which had just finished, where God had moved amazingly. So when the day was ending, I asked God and I said, God, you promised me a sign, but the day is ending. I have not seen that sign. Then the Spirit of God told me, didn't you see the sign? The moment I had that question, didn't you see the sign? My mind quickly ran to that phone call. And the phone call, it became very clear that phone call was a sign. Then I said, well, I didn't even understand the person who called me. I started venturing to know who that person who called me. Then eventually I came to know she was one of the youths in church. But when I came to learn how that lady also made that call, I realized that God can make connections. The way He made a connection with this servant of Abraham and this girl Rebecca is almost the way God made a connection when it came to me. So eventually, I get to know about this girl. I'd already seen her in church, but she was a bit a distance. She was working in the Sunday school. I had not taken too much notice of her. She wasn't part of my leadership team, so I had not taken too much notice of her. But eventually, God made it work, and I eventually married this lady. But when I came to know about how that lady made that phone call, I really realized that we do ourselves a big disadvantage if we don't seek God. This lady told me she was a student at the university. And by that time, she didn't even have a phone. She had met one of her friends who had been part of the conference, and it's the friend who told her about the mighty move of God in the conference, which we had just had, which she had not been part of. And then she gave her my number. So she kept it, wrote it somewhere, and knew that anytime maybe she would call me to say thank you and so on. But this day, this young girl moves out and goes to call a friend. She had only 200 shillings. And by that time, there were these booths where people were making calls. So she goes to the booth and says, I want to make a call. Gave in 200. Somebody gave in a number and somebody called. A friend of hers. When they called, the friend didn't pick. And then she told her, give me my money. She said, no, don't take this man away from me. You have been the first client. I've not worked since morning. Please call another number. And the person said, but the person is not picking. But don't you have another number to call? Then she started checking her notebook and she found that number, which the friend had given her. I said, okay, you try this one. Then he called my number and I picked. When I picked, that's when she told me, I'm called this person. I called you to say thank you for the great ministry among the youth. When eventually it worked out and I married her, and I got to know about how that phone call was made and how God told me that that phone call was the sign that I'm giving you about a person you marry, I was amazed. But eventually, it worked out very well. I told this girl, keep this confidential, and we kept it confidential. When I was announced in church, there was a big uproar. There was a big excitement in church. Almost for 1 hour, people were just shouting. Then eventually, we did our ceremony, and I married this young lady. We have now moved over 20 years in marriage. God has been so gracious. We have 8 children, 4 boys and 4 girls, a very lovely family. I really don't imagine if God had not been there, whether I would have navigated that intersection. It was a critical one. All the people who were pushing that I'm supposed to marry them, eventually there were so many to imagine that God would be the one instructing them. But each one of them was claiming. So you can imagine that the devil was using that critical junction to get me off. But I thank God that God gave me a wife who actually is so aligned with what I do and what I live for, that she's a support. I don't regret having gotten such as a partner. So this is why I encourage you, young people who are yet to be married, please do not do it your way. Ask God. God will lead, and make God a friend by being a God seeker. God bless you.
Eyo yibadde Pursuers Moment ng'ekutusiddwako essomero lya
Pursuers Junior School ly'essomereriza okunazaako gw'omuzadde nnako lya ddene boarding nga lisomesa abaana okuva ku nasale paka ku P7 era nga ku musingi ogutya Katonda kwe lyazimbibwa. Lirina abasomesa abakugu abategeera kye bakola era nga liri mu kifo ekisirifu obulungi ekyemunguluddwa obutonde. Abaana baffe tubabangula mu by'omu kibiina n'ebyo ebibayambako mu bulamu obwa bulijjo omuli eby'obulimi n'obulunzi. Nasale section yaffe erimu abasomesa bakwata obulungi abaana ate nga n'ebyokuzanyisa weebiri ku ssomero. Tulina n'emmotoka ezitambuza abaana. Ebitone by'abaana tubitumbula nga tuyita mu music, dance and drama saako n'ebyemizannyo era ng'abayizi 100 abanasooka okwewandiisa ng'ennaku z'omwezi 9 February tezinnatuuka. Dr. Charles ne Jessica Kiyaga bakubawa half basare. Essomero lisangibwa Butambala ku luguudo lwa Mpigi Gombe. Okumanya ebisingawo kuba ku 0772 41 98 ne ku 0702 36 ana mwemo nkaga munya. Pursuers Junior School, in pursuit of knowledge.